for taking the time to be with us today. Great to see some familiar faces as always, and also some new faces as well. So hopefully the next 45 minutes or so is helpful. You take something away from it today, and hopefully we'll have a bit of time for a few questions at the end. If we've got time, we'll do our best to answer them. So I'll just kick off with initial sort of a note on the agenda, really. So I'll quickly go through a bit of a brief intro myself from Prodo, and if you wouldn't mind sort of staying muted for the time being, that would be great. But do feel free to use the chat pane as well. So my colleagues Meg and Hugh will probably be dropping a few handy resources in there, so keep a lookout for those. And then yeah, we'll obviously go through what makes a great customer portal. That's why you've all registered today, and I'm sure you're keen to hear what we've got to say. So we'll go through that section. I'll quickly show you a portal as well, just in terms of what we've put together in terms of best practice, what we've seen work really well from our perspective. And then, yeah, like I say, hopefully at the end, save a bit of time for a bit of a Q&A as well, just in case anyone's got any questions. Myself, the Prodo team, anyone on today, we'll do our best to answer them or find someone who can, because there's a lot more technically minded people than me at Prodo. So yeah. Okay, so a quick intro then. So a quick intro, my name's Jacob. So hello, nice to meet you all. I'm a digital strategist at Prodo. So it's my job to explore digital transformation opportunities with organizations and basically align Prodo solutions to those organizations' pain points in effect. So there's a few Prodo colleagues on with me today. So you might be able to see them in your Zoom window. Just give us a quick wave, Prodo people. So yeah, I actually started with the agency 3 years ago as an account manager, working exclusively with a handful of Prodo's key housing partners. So PA Housing, Stockport Homes, Accent, Clarion, Plymouth Community Homes, and a few more. So yeah, I like to think I'm quite close to the sector on its challenges. So hopefully what we've got to say to you will sort of resonate with a few of you today. We're of course hosts of the Housing Hive session that you've attended today. It's a session we set up back in March. Initially just to connect sort of like-minded housing professionals in a sort of a digital way, such as yourselves, to share ideas, collaborate, and ways to sort of use digital to aid operation really and customer experience during the pandemic. But since then it's grown into almost this sort of mini community where we have a topic and a speaker every 2 weeks from inside the sector, outside, obviously from ourselves today. We've had a few from some of the guys on today. So Harpreet from Cotsway did one recently, Fruit from Greatwell. They've been really good ones, for example. But from a Prodo perspective, we are a digital transformation partner agency of 50 strong based in the UK who have specialised in the housing sector for over 16 years now. We are the authors of Shift, How to Make Channel Shift Happen in Housing, which you'll see on the screen there, which is a book we published last year. So if anyone wants a free copy, just feel free to fill in the form we've got on prodo.com/shift, and we'll post you one out in the post. So that's basically results from a survey we ran with over 250 housing associations, key contributors, as well as our guide on how to best plan and run digital transformation projects in the sector, really. So yeah, if you'd like a copy, get in touch and we'll send you one in the post for free. And we're also the minds and the team behind Franklin as well, which is the little guy you'll see waving at you at the bottom of the screen there, which is our SaaS self-service portal product, which I'll kind of touch on a little bit more detail a little bit later on. So yeah, what you're here to hear about today is obviously customer portal. So I'll get started. So just to begin with, I think we're all pretty clear and we've got a pretty good idea on what a customer portal is. I think it's just worth quickly defining that and talking about a couple of examples before we get into housing customer portals and some of the features and functions that we've seen work really well over the years. So what is self-service customer portal? So it's basically an interface where customers can interact with an organisation, access information specific to them, to a place where, as a customer, I can log in, I can see my account information, I can carry out actions that I want to relevant to my account all by myself at a time that suits me, without having to visit the organisation, find a phone number, wait in a queue, these sorts of things. I'm pretty confident that everyone on this call today uses a self-service portal in some way as a customer, if not daily, weekly, monthly at least. So where are these self-service portals? What are the tried and tested ones that we know work really, really well out there? So in truth, they're everywhere. But a few key examples, and some that I personally use regularly myself, would be MyEE, so mobile network operators, online banking with something like Monzo, and utilities companies, so British Gas. So only the other day, I used my EE app for getting a deal on BT Sports, watched the box on the Saturday night. So I did that whilst having my lunch, just on my phone. My fiance went out for the night. I got myself a curry in, got some beers, and watched the boxing. So what more could a guy ask for? It was great. Okay, that's what a customer portal is. I think we're all pretty clear. So I suppose, how important is self-service? What's the use cases for it, the benefits, and why is this a topic that we talk about so much in the housing sector and outside? So if we begin thinking about this from a customer perspective, but also from the organisational side as well, as a customer of Monzo, EE, British Gas, I use those portals because they're really convenient for me. I can log in, I can do what I need to do at a time that suits me. And if I wanted to pay a gas bill, at 3, 4 in the morning after changing my daughter Reva's nappy in bed, I can do that if I want to. It's quick and easy. So portals that are done really, really well have clearly defined user journeys and paths to get me where I need to be without a whole lot of effort, without much waiting. And it's personal to me. So all I have to do is log in. I have my account information right in front of me on my device, and I can do what I need to there and then. But from the organisation side, so stepping away from the customer, letting customers interact with you with no manual intervention whatsoever is extremely efficient. We're all probably aware of the PwC stats, which came out a few years back, which we're hoping is going to be refreshed at some time soon, actually. But these are often referred to in that a digital interaction is, with a housing association specifically, is 42 times cheaper operationally to complete than a phone call. So that's a huge, huge cost saving and a huge sort of use case and reason why that a self-service portal is important. Not only that, but allowing those people who can and want to self-serve to do so frees up your staff's time to actually spend with people who need your support. I remember when we launched Orbit's digital lettings portal, and you'll probably remember this as well, Jen. It freed up so much time of one particular lady's day there that the feedback she gave was that her job actually became what she wanted it to be. She was helping people. She was using her expertise to help improve those people's lives rather than going through mundane, everyday questions all day, completing admin, these sorts of things. So it really sort of frees up your expertise basically to spend with people who need them. It's a really effective comms channel. So for individual, group, global communication or marketing messages, it offers brilliant insight, not only into user behavior for user experience improvements, but also customer preferences and interests as well to further tailor their experience based on their personal interactions with your company, with your organization. So far, we've kind of talked a little bit about customer portals and outside of sector portals, which we know work really well and we all use very, very regularly. So there's a couple of quotes from our book I wanted to mention at this point. So some housing associations now are in a position where they're having to move and operate in a way similar to a PLC. They're more commercial than ever. It's not a case of just having tenants. It's a case of you have customers and they're literally at the heart of everything that you do. So, and that kind of, leads on well from Farouk's talk last week around the customer charter and sort of informing Great Well Homes' transformation strategy. So in terms of serving those customers with what they actually need and what they want, brings me on to a few stats as well from that we've sort of got hold of. So did you know that 69% of customers want to solve as many issues as possible by themselves? 90% of consumers actually expect an online portal for customer service. And 79% of customers have a more favourable view of brands or companies which offer a mobile responsive customer support portal. So these are huge, huge numbers and huge percentages. So again, from a perspective of giving customers what they want and what they need, it's an absolute must. So I suppose where we are at the moment and what we've seen over the past few months, customer portals are no longer sort of seen as a nice to have bonus feature of websites or things to just be bolted on. They're actually a necessity these days. Now, we already kind of knew this already, but the pandemic's definitely confirmed that for us. And we've seen that housing associations have been forced to basically prioritize digital, to offer those digital engagement tools in order to operate, in order to continue to service customers and make sure that inquiries and repairs and things are handled in a timely sort of manner. So we've kind of been through already what a customer portal is. We know customers are expecting one. We know that having a good one is important. So that kind of brings us nicely on to what actually is a good customer portal in the housing sector. So I suppose from a very, very high level, a great customer portal has to do these two main things from a high level. So it needs to enhance the customer experience. It needs to give them something that your other channels can't. And that can be something as simple as letting them report a repair or schedule a repair at a time that suits them, whether it be the middle of the night, like I mentioned before, which of course otherwise they just couldn't do. It'd be a case of getting hold of you in office hours by the phone. It'd be a case of visiting you in person. But not only that, it needs to work for the organization too. So it has to help your staff basically do their job better. It's no good having a portal in place if it's creating more work internally. Portals with a bad user experience, for example, gives your customer yet another reason to get in touch and call you. And then, again, if it's not fully integrated in terms of the data source and the data transfer, then and you're having to sort of manually marry up, form submissions with your database to understand who it is and what to do with it, it's not really serving that purpose of efficiency savings. So I suppose that is, the ultimate sort of win-win. Enhances the customer experience, it's great for the organization in terms of operations. That's definitely what we call a win-win. So before we get onto specific functions and features, I want to sort of touch upon first the absolute fundamentals on which we see each customer portal absolutely must have before even thinking about anything else. So if you've got a customer portal in place at the moment with, one or more of these missing, or you think that one of the more of these is sort of falling down, just feel free to get in touch and let us help. So the first one is safe and secure tech and infrastructure. So obviously the nature of data which is passing through a housing customer portal is potentially very sensitive and needs to be treated with a high level of care. So it's no good having a portal built with something like WordPress using plugins that's been designed and developed by a developer in their bedroom, leaving your customer data at risk. It's also pretty pointless if the infrastructure means that it's going to be going down all the time and nobody can access it. And similarly, from a more sort of a performance perspective, if it's super slow to load, people are just going to get frustrated and not bother with it. I know I personally would. The next point would be, stable, reliable and accurate data source. So if possible, and our sort of preference here from Proda's perspective is an API integration with your housing management system or main database, like a CRM. So that's preferable. That means a live connection for authentication. It means two-way updates and is secure as well. But we've also had success in the past using an SFTP where we nightly pull down or daily, twice daily pull down and read that data securely if that API is not available and we can't put that connection in place. But essentially, if you sort of see the customer portal, as almost like a presentation layer of that customer data and a means for them to interact with that data, then if the data is poor, if the data is inaccurate or hard to access, there's going to be some issues. So the next one is obviously an absolute must nowadays. Being fully responsive across device types is key. The screenshots I used earlier on, for example, from E and Monzo and whatever else, were all mobile. One of the sort of the main powers of a customer portal really is that convenience. So if you have something that's not working on mobile, that's a huge gap there. And a high level of accessibility. So if you've gone to the trouble of having a portal put in place, but the functions and features on there simply are unusable or don't suit your customer types, what's the point in having it? It needs to be clear, it needs to be easy to interact with and easy for everyone to see and use. And that kind of leads on to the final one in terms of fundamentals, which is basically a nice, modern, user-friendly user experience. So this particularly is a gap which ourselves at Prodo have managed to fill pretty well over the years. So we often hear and see of large tech companies who happen to provide a housing management system which have a sort of a bolt-on customer portal. And we're all sort of aware of the key players in that sort of area. But these sort of afterthought almost portals are often pretty poor in terms of the UX that they offer. And if that's the sort of the case, then no one's going to use it, no one's going to interact with it. We kind of have a phrase here at Prodo which we use basically for everything we do, from the sales process that we put together, from our product development, from our design work, and crucially the UX, which is simple, easy and appealing. So if that UX isn't those three things, people aren't going to engage with it. And again, it makes it almost sort of redundant because you've got the system there, but no one's sort of able to use it, no one wants to use it. They're just going to call you up or come and visit you either way. So they're the sort of fundamentals. So that brings us on to kind of the key functions from a portal perspective, really, that we kind of expect in terms of offering a housing portal. So viewing and updating personal information is obviously pretty much a given. When you log into your account, you expect to be able to update it with your latest phone number, with your most relevant email address. The second point, sort of emphasis here, is basically the word easily on the sort of repairs diagnosis. So there's a few out there, diagnostics tools still live today, which we kind of see all the time, which basically looks like, Windows 95. It's clunky on mobile, difficult to navigate. Now repairs is one we often talk about being the number one costly operational process in housing associations, and that's basically due to the numerous variables involved. So the potential contractors, the customer versus housing association responsibilities, getting the job right first time, rather than having to sort of arrange repeat visits. So that if that initial section of diagnosing the repair is quick, easy, and effective, then that makes a huge difference to get things moving. And then I suppose moving on to easily paying rent. So from a revenue perspective, it's kind of obvious and clear why you want to make that easy from a CRO, from a conversion rate optimization perspective, removing any potential barriers to someone paying and sort of bringing their account in line or keeping that account up to date. And then another one we often touch on as being another sort of costly area, and one that requires a little bit of care is antisocial behaviour. So that's usually in the top 3 or top 5 at least, in terms of most important or costly processes in the housing space. So they're the sort of the fundamentals, the key functions which we see need to be on housing customer portals, basically. So that kind of moves us on quite nicely from what that sort of almost good portal is, and then what makes that into a great portal. So these things kind of take these solutions to the next level, if you like. So together with being able to report a repair, allowing the ability for the customer to actually schedule a time slot which suits them for that repair as well is another level of customer experience. It's another level of convenience and something else that your teams don't actually have to sort themselves. Now, this often relies on a DRS system being available, but that's something that we sort of recommend including if that system's there, and if it's if the association is set up internally to be able to allow that, basically. Automation around inquiries, so including a chatbot to assist here is absolutely great. It's basically another way to direct users to helpful content, to an area of the portal which specifically helps that person without any interaction from your teams other than sort of the setup and sort of the management of it. So we've seen great results with chatbots, with Housing Solutions, with Orwell, with Rochdale Borough-wide Housing, just to name just a handful, in terms of the chatbots that those associations are using are seeing, levels of 70 to 80% of inquiries being handled by the chatbot themselves, or any sort of need of interaction whatsoever, which is, obviously hugely efficient. Another thing to mention at this stage would be attaching feedback surveys to specific actions or specific events is great. So a quick feedback survey off the back of logging a repair, potentially. How did you find this experience? Even exit intent, which are basically messages which are launched when that user's about to exit the website, in terms of moving off the browser or exiting the window. So that's a way of basically launching a message, have you managed to do what you needed to do on the portal today? And these things give you great insights and can allow you to really enhance that service offering based on real customer data, rather than preference or people might think might be a good improvement internally. Together, obviously, with sort of user experience analysis from GA, from Hotjar, these sorts of things. Personalizing that experience is something that is talked about a hell of a lot these days, and that's basically presenting content or actions relevant to that particular customer type. So we talk a lot about amending portal experiences for leaseholds compared to sort of traditional residents who can report repairs and things. That's a great way to sort of take the portal to the next level in terms of allowing that customer to do what they need to do. And then things like messaging centers, we're talking about a lot at the moment, and we're implementing a couple with our couple of Prodo partners as well. So basically another means of communication which isn't the phone. It lets customers get in touch at a time that's sort of suitable to them, and it can be managed in a way that's a little bit more manageable than sort of waiting in a queue on the phone, or having a whole host of people answering the phone. AI-based repairs reporting is something that we're in the process of launching at the moment with one of our partners too. So allowing users to report repairs based off taking a photograph of the sort of defect or the issue, rather than going through a full step-by-step process is super, super quick. Another benefit to this here is that it can develop your asset management data too, which is another area which we often hear is missing or even outdated. And then moving on to that sort of app-like experience as well. So that gives you the ability to offer device-specific functions such as push notifications, for example, straight to the customer's device. So, for example, you're in arrears, you need to make a payment straight to the device, or even things like repair reminders as well. So, remember, we'll be visiting you. You booked a scheduled time for a repair in 1 week, another one, in a day's time, another one maybe in an hour. Just basically to increase the chances of that resident being home and available to sort of let you in and sort of get around that issue we touched on before of sort of repeat visits and those sorts of things. So there are some areas which we're working on at the moment, which we could sort of see, not key functions, but really can take that portal from good to great, really. But ultimately, having a portal which offers those fundamentals, the key functions, live and available, is really the most important thing. Custom portals are great. Having something all singing, all dancing built, which is in line specifically with your needs, is of course of a huge value. But 6+ months to get that in place is a really long time to wait. And I'd say don't let getting the optimized fundamentals in place really quickly and easily get in the way of producing something all-encompassing, which takes forever, in that sort of pursuit of perfection, if you like. And an aspect of our book actually is around in digital transformation, doing something is often really a lot better than doing nothing in terms of progressing with channel shift projects and transformational projects. And having those fundamentals in place, another reason for that means that you can learn from user behavior, you can learn from statistical data to inform what those next steps might actually look like, specific to your customers themselves, rather than, again, preferences and sort of ideas internally. We kind of say that, don't let the customers suffer. The customers shouldn't have to suffer based on internal requirements and internal delays, basically. So that kind of brings us on quite nicely to what I mentioned at the start, which is our subscription-based portal, Franklin. So that's exactly why we launched a subscription version of our Franklin product. So from Prono's perspective, we have a rich history of building bespoke portals for housing associations. We probably always will continue to do so. But we understand, that not all housing associations are in a position to invest in that type of platform, or crucially have the time to wait to get these things live. So we've taken all of our learnings from those different projects, put them into a subscription-based portal, and given a nice sort of waving icon to make them look nice and friendly. But yeah, Franklin basically ticks off those fundamentals, those key functions, and some of the extras too. It can be up and running in a matter of minutes or a couple of weeks, depending on the data source that we sort of that's required there or available. But there's also an option to further extend that in a more custom way. So, like I said, get something live that works, learn from it, and then tailor it based on data and based on things that you're learning from your customers. There's multiple package tiers available, which work off functionality and number of customer accounts as well. So it really suits housing associations of all sizes, like the slide says. So at that point, we've kind of been through customer portal, what it is, why it's important these days, people are expecting it, what makes a good one. So I just wanted to quickly sort of jump into Franklin really and just show you what we've done with it in terms of best practices, things that we've learned, things that we see work really, really well. Just for the sort of the last sort of 10 minutes or so before we move into the sort of Q&A section, I suppose. So this is actually logged in, so I'm just going to quickly log out just to show you from the initial sort of journey. So the Franklin login and registration process is kind of where the authentication integration with your data source comes in. So we often authenticate on 3 pieces of key data, usually so surname, date of birth, and reference number is often the one, and then verify via email that person log in, and then they can go in and carry out the things that they need to carry out. So I'll just log in, just show you a couple of features. This is our staging one, so hopefully it's going to speed up and let me in quite soon. You can hear that background noise. It's the fan heater, by the way, because it's very, very cold in here today. There we go. So yeah, as you sort of just kind of saw them when I logged in, this is the Franklin dashboard page which we've put together. And And again, like I touched on a little bit earlier on, in terms of offering a solution on mobile, Franklin does just that. So we've designed this in a way which works great across all different device types. You can sort of imagine browsing through this, swiping through these cards with your thumb. You can still access all the tools and all the different menu items and things across the bottom here. Obviously, from a conversion optimization perspective, that's, you know, and UX is close to the user's thumb. Yeah, I just wanted to really touch on a few of those fundamentals, really. So this is built with a CMS called Umbraco, which is an enterprise level .NET CMS, which is something that we use for a hell of a lot of our development at Proto. We're a gold partner. It's open source, so we can be really flexible with it, but it is centrally maintained by Umbraco in terms of security patching and maintenance. So the sort of security and quality and security of data is really there. So that's that fundamental sort of ticked off. In terms of accessibility controls, we've included a few here. So, you know, some people will want to view this with larger text so they can see it a little bit easier on different devices, potentially. Some people may be visually impaired, so making things a little bit easier for them as well in terms of a high contrast mode, so they can see the differences between the sort of CTAs and things a little bit easier. Another sort of feature I'd quite like to mention, being a Welshman, is that it's multilingual as well, so we can put a Welsh version in place, which is good for yourself there, Hugh, as well. But I'm Welshman, actually can't speak very much Welsh, so I'll put it back to English. But yeah, the sort of the key outcomes that we kind of, you know, touched upon earlier on is often rent and repairs. So in terms of rent statements, hopefully a portal like Franklin is the end of paper statements, and we've put this together basically working off a date picker. So I can go in and view rent statements in terms of date, amounts, and what that's done for my balance. If needs be, I can download and print a copy off of that. But that's the sort of the CRO I mentioned a little bit earlier on, in terms of that make a payment button is consistently available to the user. So there's no barriers in letting this person, this tenant or resident, make a payment online. And then in terms of making a payment, we often link with all pay or an equivalent to sort of capture that transaction itself. But it's the repairs process that people are often quite interested in, and the one that we're working on a little bit more at the moment as well. So which I mentioned earlier on in terms of the AI. So the repairs history page works in a very, very similar way to the rent history page and sort of rent statement. So you can see, again, it works with a date picker. I can select between personal and communal here. I can see a summary and when that was logged, when it's completed, for example. And then sort of moving into reporting a repair, which we mentioned, you know, being a key factor in terms of allowing people to do this very, very easily, it is captured here. So this is the current sort of repairs diagnosis process that Franklin offers at the moment. So we can kind of move through here and get to different outcomes. So we kind of also hear a lot of, you know, housing association responsibilities versus tenant responsibilities, and the sort of difference between those, and being able to capture those digitally as well. So if we first of all touch upon something that potentially, you know, wouldn't be your responsibility from a housing association perspective, be something like someone trying to report the fact that their sink is blocked. So we can go in here, we can, yes, confirm the sink taps are off, but no, I haven't tried to unlock this myself just yet. So rather than either not including this option because it's not your responsibility, or just saying, you know, you need to sort this out yourself, it gives you a chance to basically offer some helpful content, helpful guidance, in that, you know, you might be able to actually fix this yourself, have a look, watch this video, maybe be able to save yourself some money rather than get someone else to sort it for you. So it's really sort of accounting for every sort of outcome that someone might be getting in touch with you for, basically. And it can be completely tailored based on, like I said before, get something live and then learn from it. If there's other areas that people are trying to get in touch with you with, then, you know, you can go in there and add those in. Other options would be some sort of like emergency report. So if someone can smell gas, then it's just a case of, you know, taking them to this outcome and presenting them with an emergency phone number to get in touch right away, rather than, you know, you're not going to present a self-help video on the smell of gas, or you're not going to in turn, you know, ask anyone to sort of schedule a repair for it. It's a case of getting that sorted as soon as possible. But then, you know, there's obviously the sort of purpose of this, the key purpose is allowing somebody to actually report that repair rather than having to do it over the phone. So if I was to go through the sort of the damp or mold category here, I'm sort of drilling down a little bit more detail based on my previous selection. So I can move through, I can select kitchen, I can add some further information. So there's some down by the window on the wall, maybe, for example. I can then upload some imagery if it's necessary. That could help sort of assess and sort of progress the repair job itself. And then from that point on, this is where the DRS integration can come in if you have one available. So rather than just completing that and submitting it through, which is totally doable, you know, if that DRS isn't there, offering that sort of complete experience in that based on the SOR or trade code attached to that particular job in the CMS, we can return relevant and suitable slots to the user to allow them to sort of book in that slot themselves, rather than having to rather than internally that having to be booked and sort of confirm with the user or vice versa. So I can go in, confirm book repair, and then go in there and sort of see it in the repairs history. So that's a sort of a key sort of win with Franklin, really, in that it's really, really easy for the user to move through. And again, this can be sort of tailored and improved as you learn from it. So this is the way that we sort of recommend and the way we've seen work really well in terms of categorization, but you might want to do it differently. And maybe other things you want to show in there, maybe different images or not show images at all, and that's totally doable. But yeah, they're sort of two key sort of aspects of Franklin in report, repair, and pay rent. The other one we mentioned in terms of key functions would be some sort of ASB reporting function as well. So in Franklin, you can set up custom content pages. So there's a bunch of different modules to allow you to do whatever you like with it, basically. So these different modules here in terms of making CTAs or forms or embedding videos that we saw in the repairs tool or a gallery. So sort of a nice example of that would be some sort of reporting of ASB tool, if you like. So the case of maybe putting in some sort of summary to say, please watch this video here, just to check that what you're trying to report to us is actually what we determine to be antisocial behaviour. If it is, then yeah, you know, please get in touch and we'll look to sort of rectify that by sort of capturing that data through the form there. So that's a nice use case for the custom pages. Another one would be some sort of documentation area. So if you wanted to show tenant handbook or home safety checklist, these sorts of things, you could do that there as well. And just offer those sort of downloads in this sort of CTA listing sort of module here. And the other areas that, you know, we're all sort of expecting to see on these portals. So updating profile information, for example, being able to manage multiple tenancies from a single account and having that information update alongside here is another great one. I suppose the other things to mention on Franklin, we're working on the app version of this at the moment as well. So Franklin subscriptions will include a native app as part of the delivery as well. So very focused on those key outcomes and very focused on the transactional aspects of being able to sort of interact with the housing association digitally, really. And again, that opens up all sorts of doors in terms of enabling push notifications, making use of GPRS where necessary, and some of the things that we're sort of used to using on mobile devices. So that's very, 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 very sort of quick tour of Franklin. A little bit of background on what we see as a great customer portal. Some of the things that we often see is missing. Some of the things that we see takes customer portals from good to great. So yeah, at this point, I just wanted to basically see if anyone's got any sort of further questions. If anyone wanted to go through anything that's sort of been posted in the chat pane at all, or anything that me or the Proto team could potentially answer, feel free to ask those questions.
Yeah, interesting to see the product looks very good. We seem to be going down the route of smart customers telling us they don't like the chatbot.
Oh, really?
Throwing more stuff at it. The chatbot's not bad, but you sort of get to a page and there's the chatbot pane, if you like. It's not like you see, you know, on a lot of other places where it looks like a live chat thing. You end up starting talking to the bot, and then it'll pitch you through to talking to someone. From a functional point of view, I think it's perfectly decent. It's not as fully featured as Franklin, but if I'm trying to report a repair, it's fairly straightforward.
Yeah. Okay.
So it seems odd that customers just don't like it. Maybe it's just in how it's presented. I suspect that may be it. Or is it something more fundamental about our tenants? Maybe it doesn't work for them. It works on a mobile. We know 70% of people come to the portal on mobile.
Okay.
It's responsive. You know, it doesn't seem to be anything wrong with it, but it just makes me wonder if we got a particular demographic that doesn't like it, or what is it? It's a conundrum.
That was going to be a question actually, Hugh, in terms of what you've been able to gather from that in terms of data. Have you been able to marry that up with any demographics that it's kind of not working for particularly, or not at this point?
One of the more interesting things data I've seen is actually the way our tenants pay for their rent. So we've got about a third of them pay with a direct debit each month, and that's great for the business. But people that pay direct debit, they don't have that regular need to get in touch with the business.
Right.
So you imagine you're renting a house, and particularly if it's a new build, there's not going to be anything going wrong with it. You may be only going to be doing one repair, maybe two a year, and you've got to look at the proportionality of the friction there. It's nice to have the self-service portal, but then again, I've got to remember my login details. I've got to sign up, and there's that pain there. Whereas they know they can just ring the telephone number if the bathroom floods.
Yeah.
So those people, difficult to get them involved. Then we've got about another third who go and pay their rent at the post office or a pay point.
Yeah.
So they don't even come to our website to pay their rent.
Physically.
So they're also going to be difficult.
Yeah.
So really, the constituency we've got is the third in the middle that do some sort of online payment with us, or at least on the telephone. Because at least if they're on the telephone, we can educate them that it's better to use the portal and direct them to do it. So that's a challenge as well. But I still wonder, even of those people, I don't think the chatbot is that bad. So why are they not engaging with it?
It could be implementation or presentation of it, like you say, Hugh, in terms of maybe the way that some of the questions are positioned, or the way that it's even, first impressions are a huge thing. So maybe if it feels too bot-like, or if it feels like it's trying to hide being a bot, for example, people get a little bit disengaged with it. But I think there's always going to be those people and those residents and customers who are a little bit resistant to interacting digitally, a little bit resistant to potentially self-service, because they like, getting on the phone, speaking to a human, and getting their issue resolved. But I think it's around, from our perspective, kind of optimizing the experience for those people who are ready for it and are sort of capable and want to get involved with digital self-service, basically. Because if those people can do it themselves nice and easy and quickly, then like we said earlier, it kind of frees you up to actually spend that time with people who do prefer getting in touch with you more manually, or maybe need to, in terms of accessibility or access to technology or internet, these sorts of things.
I mean, that is what the business is trying to achieve. They're wanting to sort of get those that self-service to self-service, so we can put our resources into the tenants and customers that need our help the most. I don't think it's friction there. I think it's just that they're not a traditionally very digital organisation, and they don't see, they see it almost as an IT function or a marketing function. They don't seem to sort of see it from top down. Well, actually, these are both key constituents of the whole thing, but actually, it's not really about marketing or about IT. It's about what coming from the customer, and they're still at the point of being the business trying to push it out, say this is what we want you to do.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's the right way of looking at it. Absolutely. I think certainly a customer experience tool rather than just specifically IT or marketing. Yeah, I would definitely agree there.
We have a bit of a mantra at Prodo about anything that we're working on, whether it's a product or a custom solution or a marketing campaign or an engagement campaign. We have kind of 3 key points that we want to hit. So is it simple? Is it easy to use? Is it appealing? And actually, that's something that cuts across a lot of the work that we do. So if we were looking at something like a new chatbot or a means of driving adoption for digital services, those are the sort of the beats that we want to be hitting to make sure that we can generate that adoption. Jake touched as well on sort of thinking about apps as well, and sort of the power of apps to help support a lot of these activities as well. And it is very much around focusing around enabling and encouraging the people that are able and willing to transact and engage digitally, and freeing up that resource to support those that can't. But when we think about apps, actually some of those low touch customers that you highlighted, Hugh, an app is a brilliant solution for those kind of customers, because as much as they may not need to transact in your portal or in your portal app very regularly, the push notifications that can be generated around that can create this kind of halo effect of trust and reassurance and reminders about things that are in combination with the transactional side, that create a really kind of sticky experience. So if I think about some of the apps that I use really, really more regularly, in terms of self-service portals, like my banking app, I don't actually go into my banking app that often, but I get probably daily push notifications from a banking app to remind me that this thing's been taken care of, that direct debit is due to go out in 2 days. So it's all that kind of like background reassurance that the app is handling for me that adds to the benefit of the solution. So I think that's something that we'll be taking into consideration really closely as we move forward with the app side of things.
It's almost like,
I think as well, you've got the camera integration, so it becomes very easy to report the repair. Say, look, I'm not having you on. Look, there it is. Look, here's the wall. A picture can tell it. Is better than 1,000 words. I think in those sort of instances.
Yeah, for sure. Great. Yeah, it's like Jenny says, it's almost like getting sort of ahead of the inquiry, isn't it? By servicing that information that people might be getting in touch with soon, so via a way that's easy to digest, I guess, by the sort of that way of doing things. So, yeah, thank you for that, Hugh. I thought that was great. I know we've had a couple of questions that Meg's passed over to me, so I'll just quickly touch on them. So I know Kim Parkins, you had a question in terms of Franklin payments. So in terms of the payments integration on Franklin, it's kind of open really as to what system that you have in place to use. Often, like you say, it is Allpay. So we can either send someone off to Allpay to capture the transaction, or if depending on what the Allpay package you have, they're actually working on a more complete solution now, so we can keep people in the portal. But it's often relies upon the payment provider that you have. Basically, we've done a more sort of complete integration with a Barclay card one in the past. I think EDPQ or something it was called, where we could keep the person in the portal, do the transaction rather than taking them off and back again. But we know that Allpay are such a huge sort of share of the market, so it's great that they're expanding and they're improving their service. But yeah, depends on what you have really. Quick one from Alex again from Cotsway, just on the, I'm not sure if Alex is still here actually, on the chatbot side of things, around do people actually like interacting with chatbots? And I think that's always a worry and always a query really. We kind of saw them work really well in the commercial space, and some of the commercial clients that we work with, we always kind of thought that it would work well in the housing space, and we've kind of proved it really with the 3 case studies that I mentioned earlier. So and again, it comes back to Hugh's point around how it's sort of implemented and how it's presented really. But Orwell and Housing Solutions were the 2 main ones. They were seeing over 80% of inquiries being resolved with a bot, and that wasn't just from a handful of data. That was from over, I think, 2,500 conversations across. Was it a couple of months, Jen? That one.
I know Housing Solutions, their CEO put a piece out recently, actually, just in the last couple of weeks, and referenced the impact their new chatbots had. So we launched it back in February, which was quite timely because it went out just before obviously the pandemic hit. They had a live chat solution which was really well adopted before. The new bot incorporates live chat but replaced that old tool. And actually with the sort of COVID specific content that we included, and also more kind of general tenant based inquiries, they've actually seen a dramatic shift in terms of the number of queries that a live chat agent needs to handle. So they're currently operating in the high 80% of queries are just resolved by the bots without a live chat agent needing to pick up that inquiry. And that's across about sort of 1,200 to 1,500 chats a month now that they're seeing quite consistently.
Great. Yeah, so hopefully that helps you answer that question, Alex. Conscious we've gone a little bit over already, so we won't keep you for any longer. But yeah, we do have another Housing Hive in a couple of weeks, which is Christmas focused. We called it, Meg? Proto.
We're going with the Fest Hive.
Go on. Great title. So yeah. If anyone wants to join us for that, if you're feeling lucky or if you're feeling confident in your Christmas quizzing abilities, feel free to join us. proto.com/housing-hive. So that's an easy to remember. Thank you again for everyone joining us today. Hopefully you took something from it. If you'd like to know any more about what we've talked about today in terms of the bots, in terms of the portals, Franklin, what we use for chatbots, feel free to get in touch with us. I think there's a link to my diary in the chat somewhere, but we'll follow up via email as well. Thank you again, and hope everyone has a great day, and hopefully you'll see you next time.
Thanks so much, everyone. Lovely to see you.
And you.
Thanks, guys. Bye. Bye.